the biggest key by far is establishing a running game. All that and more here on today's edition of Locked On Syracuse. Now, before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So Syracuse football, as we have already talked about here on this show, has a quarterback in Rickie Collins making his first career collegiate start on Saturday against Duke. Now, fortunately for Syracuse, this is not the first time that Rickie Collins will be playing any sort of game action. In fact, we saw him fill in for a little over a quarter last week against Clemson, played a little bit against Colgate, and did attempt 7 passes while he was at LSU. So he does have some experience, but this is his first collegiate start. Now, I'd imagine that Syracuse wants to make Rickie Collins' life as easy as possible. I don't think it's a good idea to ask Rickie Collins in his first ever start to go out and be a hero right away. I'll certainly take it. Trust me, if Rickie Collins goes out there, throws the ball 40, 50 times, maybe even 60 times, maybe, I don't know, has over 400 total yards and 4 touchdowns, doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, I think we'll throw a parade here on this podcast. We will have a Locked On Syracuse parade if that happens, because that means that Syracuse football would not miss a beat at that point at the quarterback position, meaning they could have an outstanding 2025 year. And who knows, that could happen one day, but for now, this Saturday, Syracuse football must establish a running game to upset the Duke Blue Devils. Think about how Syracuse came out against the Clemson Tigers last week. Let's go over some of the first few plays of that game. What did Syracuse do? First play, Yassine Willis, 4-yard rush. Then Yassine Willis broke a big one for a 32-yard gain. Then Will Nixon was subbed in. He got a 5-yard rush. Then Steve Angeli scrambled on his own for 8 yards, did end up getting banged up on the play, not to be confused with unfortunately suffering the season-ending injury in the third quarter. He was actually banged up in the first quarter as well, but did stay in the game. However, he did have to come out for a play. Rickie Collins came in, and he also ran for 2 yards. So the first 5 plays against Clemson by Syracuse were all runs. And think about what that did to Clemson, not just on that drive, but for the rest of the game. And we can talk about the ending of that first drive against Clemson, because the next 2 plays, Jonte Cook, 17-yard catch, and then Justice Ross Simmons caught a 12-yard back shoulder touchdown to give Syracuse a 7-0 lead in the first quarter on the first drive. Once Clemson couldn't stop the run, game over. At least for their defense going up against the Syracuse offense, you knew that if they could not stop the Syracuse ground game, it was done. Because Syracuse, we knew at least up until that point, that they could throw the football pretty effectively against pretty much everyone. That includes even Tennessee back in week 1, where they were able to throw the football at a pretty decent rate. If you can't stop Syracuse on the ground, you're in trouble as a defense. And look, relating this to the Duke Blue Devils, Rickie Collins, we all have to admit, I'm optimistic about him. I do think that he is going to perform at a pretty high level, and we'll talk more about that on Friday here on this show on Poll Friday, expectations for the rest of 2025 with Rickie Collins. But he is a mystery box. We all, as Syracuse fans, have to accept that we truly don't know about Rickie Collins up until this point. And even though he is seeing game action, I don't know if we've really gotten a fair assessment of Rickie Collins. He came out against Colgate, threw a brutal interception to start, and then he was pretty good from there, but it's also Colgate, and it's hard to get rid of that interception from your mind he threw in that one. And then against Clemson, he threw a touchdown to Justice Ross Simmons. It was a back shoulder throw. It was a great throw, great catch. But it gave Syracuse a 20-point lead, and from then on, it seemed like Syracuse football sort of had the training wheels on Rickie Collins, and for good reason. They asked him at that point, they're up by multiple scores. There's one quarter to go. Just play mistake-free football. And to his credit, he did play mistake-free football, but now he's actually starting a game from start to finish, right? So it's a little bit different. And I just don't think that asking Rickie Collins to be a hero right off the bat against Duke is a smart strategy for Syracuse football. Also worth mentioning that we talked about this yesterday. Duke's rushing defense, it's not exactly the best rushing defense in all of college football. They allow over 150 yards a game on the ground through the first 4 games of the season. That is towards the bottom of the ACC. Hollywood Smothers of NC State, he is a really good running back, by the way, but still, he had over 120 yards against Duke last week on over 7 yards a carry. And we've also gone over the multiple quarterbacks that have been able to run against this Duke defense in general. Now, what if they fall behind in this game, right? Because a lot of what I'm saying is important when it comes to, hey, Syracuse, you might want to get out to a good start, right? Look, getting off to a good start, no matter what the sport, I think no matter what is pretty important. But I also think it's a misnomer to say that every single game it's a key. You don't always have to get off to a good start to still do what you want to do and eventually win a game. So what do I mean by that? Would it be great if Syracuse came out just like they did against Clemson, go up 10-0 before Duke even touches the ball? Sure. Be outstanding if Syracuse can do something like that, right? But even if they fall behind in this game, do not abandon the run. Do not abandon the run, because you want to limit the amount of times that Rickie Collins is in a situation where the whole world knows that he has to throw, and we just have to see what happens. That's what I mean by make his life as easy as possible. Sure, there will be moments in this game where Rickie Collins is going to have to step up and make a play, but it's also on the team around him to step up and rally behind him as well.